And we can do this in partnership with other BRICS nations in order to achieve that, so that we never have a situation as arose during COVID where Africa was left at the back end of the queue. And it's not only during COVID, I can cite Ebola recently, and also probably the most recent example is the outbreak of Mpox on the African continent. And we saw once again, Africa was at the back end of the queue, scrambling for vaccines around the world, never got the vaccines. And this trend will continue ad infinitum until and unless we have our own capacities and capabilities. So that's, for me, the central thematic that came out of this declaration. It's a very long-worded and unwieldy declaration, but if you cut through all of it, this was the main point and the main feature.
And as you said, this is beyond just vaccines. So it's beyond, eras or times of pandemics. It's really about the manufacturing of medicines, for the countries within the BRICS bloc and the global south. But if we're looking at timelines, Dr. Stravla, how soon can the BRICS countries reduce dependence on Western supply chains?
Look, you have a mix of countries within BRICS. You've got those that have highly developed pharmaceutical, vaccine, and med technology industries, such as India, for example, and China. South Africa is somewhere in the middle, and countries like Indonesia are somewhere in the middle. And then, possibly Russia, you could put in that sort of middle road. And then there are those countries that have got limited capability, such as Ethiopia, for example. Now, how do all of these countries work together? I'm more seized on what these countries can do in accelerating and giving momentum to the African Pharmaceutical Industrialization Project, as it's called. What is this project exactly? The African Union in 2022, so about 2 years ago, resolved that it should acquire 60% of its vaccine and pharmaceutical requirements for its own people from African manufacturers by 2040. It's quite a steep ambition, but one that if the necessary actions are taken, and by actions I mean government supporting this, the multilateral institutions like Gavi, UNICEF, PEPFAR, and others assisting and changing the procurement modalities. And then, of course, significantly reducing the red tape. I think what is materially dragging back the African manufacturing project is the immense bureaucracy and red tape that exists not only on the continent but beyond the continent when one has to deal with the World Health Organization. So if we're able to address all of these areas and address them timelessly and effectively, then I think we can be on track for 2040. Conversely, if we don't and we continue to be laggards, then unfortunately, our people on the continent, when they need vaccines, when they need medical countermeasures, will continue to find themselves at the back end of the queue. That affects lives and livelihoods, and it also materially affects economies on the continent. Put differently, there is a direct correlation between investing in our own pharmaceutical capacity and production and enhanced productivity and economic growth on the African continent.
And what role will the BRICS Vaccine Research and Development Center play in preparing for future pandemics or disease outbreaks? You mentioned there the red tape around the World Health Organization, for example. But internally, what role will the R&D of BRICS play in this?
So the facility, which I think is not a facility that is going to provide solutions immediately. It has to be set up and resourced and capacitated, etc. Its role will be to provide a pipeline of interventions, whether it's vaccines or other immunological related products. So that's what it will do, and it will license these products to African companies so that African companies can produce vaccines and other measures for the African continent.
Dr. Stavros, we're going to leave it at that for this afternoon, but thank you so much for the update of some of the outcomes of the Brics summit, specifically around universal health coverage. That's Dr. Stavros Nicolaou, Pharmacare Group's senior executive responsible for strategic trade development. He takes us to exactly 4:52.